At that time, Indian politics was immersed in general elections. In 1971, the Pakistani army carried out a brutal crackdown in East Pakistan, targeting not only protesters but also doctors, advocates, and public workers. Women were not exempted from the army's attacks. Many East Pakistanis viewed India as their savior during this tragic situation. During that period, our country found itself surrounded by enemies on all four sides, leaving it in a state of helplessness. Since the 1960s, America has provided assistance to Pakistan. There are concerns about Chinese encroachment on the border. Historically, both America and China engaged in actions to counter the Soviet Union. Consequently, India faces threats from both the West and the East. When Indira Priyadarshini returned to power on March 18, 1971, she wished to liberate East Pakistan and eliminate these threats. Within a week, Indira considered military intervention in East Pakistan. On March 25th, she discussed the matter with Army Chief Sam Manekshaw in the Army's operations room. Sam's answer was no. Later, when the cabinet insisted, Sam said he could resign if they wanted him to. Manekshaw had several reasons. The military units, assigned to provide security for the election, had not returned. Railway wagons were unavailable for the movement of military supplies, as they were needed to transport grain during the harvest seasons. Additionally, the rainy season posed challenges, as tanks and armored vehicles could not advance when rivers in East Pakistan were flooded. We needed weapons that could match the modern American weapons in Pakistan's arsenal. Sam's argument was that addressing all these issues would take time. Indira, who had no doubts about Sam's intelligence and brilliance, remained silent. However, the Prime Minister was not idle. She did everything necessary to ensure that the fuel needed for the war was not denied by the Muslim countries of West Asia, along with Pakistan. Diplomat Muhammad Yunus Khan was sent as a special envoy. He received assurances from Muslim countries that fuel would not be banned in case of war. After this, Indira visited Western countries and gained the support of their leaders. Public opinion also turned in favor of India. Western media started writing against Pakistan. By November, Sam Manekshaw appeared before Indira by completing all the arrangements. The story of that meeting was exaggerated. Sam, who used to jokingly call any woman sweetie and darling, closed the door and said to the Prime Minister with an authentic smile, "Sweetie, I am ready." Indira, worried that there might be spying in her office, told Sam to keep quiet. A piece of paper was handed to Sam. Sam Manekshaw wrote a date on it. After reading it, Indira burnt the piece of paper. It is said that December 4th was written on that piece of paper, the day the war began. The Army's plan was that, if the war started on the evening of the fourth day, military movements could be conducted at night. However, as night bombing is challenging, the Air Force's position was that early morning operations would be sufficient. The dispute between the forces was resolved by the enemies themselves. On the evening of December 3rd, Pak aircraft attacked 3 Indian air bases on the western border. In response, India declared war. The Indian strategy was, leave the highways, take the byways. Until then, the British style was to break through every defense and avoid the possibility of an attack from the rear. Instead, by leaving the enemy's defenses untouched, they advanced through small roads, bypasses, and fields to reach the capital Dhaka. This was the instruction given by Manekshaw and his team to their field officers. The Indian Army launched 3 ground attacks into East Pakistan, 1 corps each from the west, north, and east. The Indian Navy conducted Operation Trident in the South Bay of Bengal to deter the Pakistani Navy. India invaded East Pakistan from 3 sides. Understanding India's strategy, Pakistan blocked minor routes. Despite only 540 soldiers deployed, India deceived the enemy by inflating the figure to 5,000. They also presented a distorted picture of a parachute drop exercise conducted in Agra a few months earlier. The next morning, news and pictures of the soldiers landing by parachute were printed, not only in Indian newspapers but also in Washington and London. Pakistani commanders were shocked the enemy was close behind. The neighborhood became an area where an operation involving power and intelligence took place. On December 8th, the scene changed when the enemy's 5 American F-86 planes were destroyed on the ground. Recognizing that, escape for Pakistan's aircraft was virtually impossible even with them on the ground. Pakistani Air Force authorities took the step of relocating some of their aircraft to Iran. The Indian Army surrounded Dhaka on the morning of December 13th, advancing through alleys and fields to minimize bloodshed. All 3 Indian Army Corps arriving from different directions hurried to enter Dhaka. However, Manekshaw once again issued a final warning to the Pakistani army to surrender.
The Indian Army is in Bangladesh. Your Air Force has been destroyed. You are surrounded on all sides. And if you don't surrender, you will be killed unmercifully.
The Indian Army is in Bangladesh. Your Air Force has been destroyed. You are surrounded on all sides, and if you don't surrender, you will be killed unmercifully. You surrender or we wipe you out, was the message given by Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw to Pakistan on 13th of December 1971. Meanwhile, India thwarted Pakistan's strategy to implement the ceasefire. India disrupted the process by flying MiG-21 aircraft to the designated meeting place. This led to the complete surrender of Pakistan. Unity in diversity, India's heritage. The war's political commander was a Brahmin woman named Indira Gandhi. The operating officer was a Dalit, Defense Minister Jagjivan Ram, and the frontline fighter was a Parsi named Sam Manekshaw. In the east, the army was led by a Sardar, in the west by a Keralite, and a Jew named Jacob officiated at the surrender ceremony. Many Hindus, Muslims, and Christians served as soldiers. Pakistan lost in their chemistry. That's how Bangladesh took its first steps, gracefully intertwining with India's warm embrace.